Namo Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Namaskritya
Narayanam namaskritya
Jaiva Narottamam
Naram
Devim Saraswati Vyasam
Devim Saraswati Vyasam
Tato Jayam Udiraye
Tato Jayam Mudiraye
Srinvatam Swakatah Krishna
Shrivatam Svakatha Krishna
Shravana Kirtana
Punyashravana Kirtana
Yantasto Yavadrani
Hridyantasto hi abhadrani
Vidhunoti Sahritsatam
Vidhunoti suhritsatam
Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu
Nashtaprayeshva bhadreshu
Yam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Tamashloke
Bhagavati Uttama-shloke
Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki
Bhaktir Bhakti Naishtiki
Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Devaki Nandanaya Cha
Devaki Nandanaya Cha
Nanda Gopakumaraya
Nanda Gopa Kumaraya
Govindaya Namo Namaha
Govindaya Namo Namaha.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. We continue. We'll begin the study of 10th chapter today. So up to 9th chapter. 9th chapter is primarily focused on instructions of Bhishma Deva to Yudhishthira Maharaj, who was very much distressed after the prospect of taking over the leadership of Hastinapur and the whole world. He was very distressed for the massacre that happened in the Kurukshetra war. Even that was induced by Lord himself. And even though Lord tried to pacify, he was not relieved of the distress. And then Lord himself encourages him to encourages Yudhishthira Maharaj to take the guidance of Bhishma Deva, who was on his deathbed of arrows. He's about to leave the world. That is primarily Lord has arranged all of this so that Bhishma's glories are revealed to the world. And very nicely, Bhishma instructs Yudhishthira Maharaj, and he also recognizes Lord Kṛṣṇa as the Supreme Lord. And after all that instructions, now Yudhishthira Maharaj is back in his Hastinapur, and now Lord is about to leave. So almost few months Lord has stayed in Hastinapur. I mean, he was about to leave like a month back, but Uttara stopped him, and the calamity of Brahmastra was about to hit her. That was thrown by Ashwatthama. And then after that episode, the episode of Yudhishthira Maharaj's distress happens, and where Lord makes that an opportunity for giving the darshan to Bhishma Dev, and also make Bhishma Dev hear speak the instructions to Yudhishthira Maharaj. So all of this happened, and now Lord finally decides to leave. And he also, in the meantime, he also pacifies his sister Subhadra. Subhadra lost her only son Abhimanyu, who was also young. He's only like 16 years old boy when he had to die in the Kurukshetra war. So he was there for some time to console his sister. And then finally he leaves for Dvārakā. So the devotees of the Pandavas and the family members, like Kunti Maharani and Uttara and all the entire clan, they were all experiencing the separation from the Lord. It's called, technically called in devotion, it's called Vipralamba Bhava. Vipralamba means the separation from the Lord, the feeling of separation from the Lord. So they are going to experience that. So we are going to discuss those related slokas in this next 10 verses we'll cover today. So let's start. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Prabhuji, we can see the screen.
Is the font good?
Yes.
Okay. So Saunaka Muni, he further inquires from Sutta Goswami. Saunaka Vacha
Shaunaka Vacha
Atva Swarikta Spridha Atatayino
Hatva
Yudhishthiro Dharma Vritam Varishta Sahanujai Pratyavaruddha Bhojana Atham Pravritta Kimakarshit Tata. Please read.
Saunaka Muni asked, after killing his enemies who desired to usurp his rightful inheritance, how did the greatest of all religious men, Maharaja Yudhishthira, assisted by his brothers, rule his subjects? Surely he could not freely enjoy his kingdom with unrestricted consciousness.
So Yudhishthira Maharaj waged a war against the Kauravas, not because he wanted to enjoy the kingdom, but because the Kauravas tried to usurp his rightful inheritance. The inheritance was actually after Pandu, it belongs to his sons. But Kauravas, they do it. In fact, because they are kings, they just wanted one village, because that is, as a king, that is the duty they can perform. They didn't want the entire kingdom, but even that, Duryodhana and his brothers, they were not willing to. And they were usurping the kingdom, which is against Dharma. And so Yudhishthira Maharaj had to fight back. Who desired to usurp his rightful inheritance? How did the greatest of religious men, Yudhishthira Maharaj, this Dharma Raja, greatest of all religious men, that's why he's called as greatest of all, assisted by his brothers, Sahanujai, means the brothers who are following in his footsteps. How did he rule the kingdom? Because he is such a religious man, he knows the moral codes so well. He is not a person with enjoyment mentality. Okay? He cannot freely enjoy kingdom with unrestricted consciousness. He is not such a such a consciousness person. He is very, very soberly, like a father. He was taking care of the entire kingdom during his period of rule. Like for example, we all studied in Ramayana when Lord Rama helped Sugriva to get his kingdom back from his brother Vali, right? You know the story of Vali and Sugriva battle. So Sugriva gets the kingdom, and he he simply forgets what Lord Rama did, and he starts enjoying even the wives of Vali. It completely was like totally unrestricted enjoyment he was doing. Until Lakshmana comes back and reminds him, hey, you have a duty to help Lord Ram in his mission to defeat Ravana. Until that, that reminder came, he was just, in unrestricted enjoyment consciousness. But Yudhishthira Maharaj is not like that. So that's what is mentioned here. Right? He could not freely enjoy the kingdom with unrestricted enjoyment because he's Dharmaraja. And his brothers are also perfectly followers of Yudhishthira Maharaj. But they had no such consciousness of unrestricted enjoyment. Yeah, please continue, Prabhu. You are muted. Can't hear.
Can you hear me, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
Maharaja Yudhishthira was the greatest of all men of religion. Thus, he was not at all inclined to fight with his cousins for the sake of enjoying the kingdom. He fought for the right cause because the kingdom of Hastinapura was his rightful inheritance, and his cousins wanted to usurp it for themselves.
Suta Uvacha
Sutavacha
Vacha
Vamsam Kurur Vamsadavagni Nirhitam
Vamsam
Tam
Samrohati Hayetva Bhava Bhavano Hari
Sammohayitva bhavavano hari
Niveshayitva Nijaraja Ishvaro
Niveshayitva nijaraja
Yudhishtiram Prita Mana Bapuvaha
Yudhishtiram Ramana
Anabhuvaha.
Sutta Goswami. Can we read, Prabhuji?
This one's.
Sutta Goswami said, Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the maintainer of the world, became pleased after re-establishing Maharaj Yudhishthira in his own kingdom, and after restoring Kuru dynasty, which had been exhausted by the bamboo fire of anger.
Lord himself was extremely happy because now Yudhishthira Maharaj is the king. Why Lord is happy? Any thoughts?
Dharma was established and his pure devotee was the king.
Yeah, because Yudhishthira Maharaj is a Dharma Raja, perfect follower of religious principles. Naturally, being the head of the state, being the father of the entire nation, he himself sets a great example for all the subjects to follow the right principles of religion. And naturally, the mission of the Lord, which is to reclaim the souls of material world, that is the mission of the Lord. Right? The only purpose Lord comes to the material world is to reclaim the souls back to his kingdom, spiritual world. So that will be fulfilled when there is a king like Maharaj Yudhishthira in the material world. So it will simplify his mission. It will help his goal. And so naturally he is extremely pleased that Yudhishthira Maharaj is in the he is now the king of the entire world. So the whole world was destroyed because of bamboo fire of anger. In the forest, whenever there is a lot of heat because of sunlight, the bamboos dry, and bamboos are thin, like stick-like material. They rub each other, and the fire just generates. When there is right atmosphere for fire to start, the bamboos just rub themselves, and immediately fire gets started, and the entire forest gets destroyed. That's how a lot of forest fires happen, and there is no easy way to calm the forest fire. So similarly, because of the unrestricted senses in the material world also, people express their anarthas, unwanted lust, greed, anger, and they quarrel among themselves, and that quarrel destroys everybody, especially the people who have bad mentality. So similarly, the Kurus, the clan of Kurus were destroyed by their own vengeance against the pure devotees of the Lord, Pandavas. So Prabhupada gives a very beautiful purport. Please read.
This world is compared to a forest fire caused by the cohesion of bamboo bushes. Such a forest fire takes place automatically, for bamboo cohesion occurs without external cause. Similarly, in the material world, the wrath of those who want to lord it over material nature interacts, and the fire of war takes place, exhausting the unwanted population. Such fires or wars take place, and the Lord has nothing to do with them. But because he wants to maintain the creation, he desires the mass of people to follow the right path of self-realization, which enables the living beings to enter into the kingdom of God. The Lord wants the suffering human beings to come back home, back to him, and cease to suffer the threefold material pangs. The whole plan of creation is made in that way, and one who does not come to his senses suffers in the material world by pangs inflicted by the illusory energy of the Lord. The Lord therefore wants his bona fide representatives to rule the world. Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa descended to establish this sort of regime and to kill the unwanted persons who have nothing to do with his plan.
So it's very clear in this purport. So he desires that the mass of people to follow the right path of self-realization, which enables the living entity to enter the kingdom of God. So that is the desire of the Lord. Lord wants the suffering human beings to come back home, back to him, and cease to suffer the threefold pangs. That is the desire. The whole plan is made that way.
The Lord was therefore fully satisfied when King Yudhishthira was on the throne and the seedling of the dynasty of Kuru in the person of Maharaj Parikshit was saved.
He is actually grandson of Yudhishthira Maharaj Parikshit, because the entire generation right after Pandus were destroyed in the war, Abhimanyu was destroyed in the war, and Gatotkacha was also destroyed in the war, and rest of the Upapandavas, the children of Pandavas with Draupadi, were destroyed while sleeping by Ashwadhama. So nobody was left, almost everybody died in the next generation. Finally, only Parikshit Maharaj was there. Any questions so far on what we discussed? Sound clear? Nishamya Bhishmoktam Athachutoktam
Nishamya Bhishmoktam
Pravritta Vijnana Vidhuta Vibhrama
Pravritta Vijnana Vibhuta Vibhrama
Sasasagam Indra Ivajitashraya
Sasagam Indrajitashaya
Parchupantam Anujanuvartita
Parivyupantam Anujavartita.
So how is Yudhishthira Maharaj ruling the world? Right? That is the nature of pure devotees. So what did he do? Bhishma Uktam Achyutoktam means he was following the guidance and instructions given by Lord Bhishma Dev and Achyuta, the Supreme Lord Krishna. Okay? Achyuta Ukta, what was spoken by the infallible Lord Krishna. So, and he has his brothers, Anujanu Vartitaha. He has a perfect followers in his brothers who just completely obey to his instructions, and they're all very, very religious people, very sober people to rule the world along with him.
So, Prabhuji, I have a question.
Hmm.
Prabhuji, this means Lord Krishna came to the earth to annihilate the adharmis and re-establish dharma, right?
Hmm.
And the culmination of that was basically the Mahabharata war.
Hmm.
And after that, what we are reading is Maharaj Yudhishthira is enthroned as the emperor of Hastinapur and the whole world. But if we see, he ruled for like almost like 35 years, right? And then they took Vanaprastha, but immediately after that, Kali Yuga started, right? So where was the period of replacing adharma with dharma? Because Kali Yuga started immediately after that, which is like completely adharma, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we explain that?
So, how did he help the entire like next periods? Is what you're asking. Right?
Yeah, means from a bad period, the war happened, so many people died. So the good period should start after that, right? But the good period was like short, very short, only for 35 years or something till Maharaj Yudhishthira ruled. And after that, immediately Kali Yuga started. There we see the bull was being beaten by the Shudra with 3 legs already broken,
Correct. Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So how do we explain that? Because for 35 years of dharmic rule, did the whole Mahabharata war happen?
No, it's not only that. This history will stay for the entire period of Kali Yuga in the scriptures, and the scripture Bhagavatam. So after Lord Krishna left the world, if we remember in the second chapter, there was one sloka that says, after Lord Krishna left the world, Bhagavatam remains the protector of dharma for
Yeah,
the world. Right?
yeah, Bhagavatam and his padukas.
Right, in the Padikas. So the instructions of Bhagavatam, they remain the guideline for the people of Kali Yuga. Not everybody is going to follow because the nature of the period was predetermined, the Yuga cycle, right?
Okay.
And people who need to be annihilated as part of Lord Krishna's mission, that was all taken care. Now, yeah, so a new period begins and Bhagavatam becomes the light. If people, whoever follow that, they will be enlightened and they will go back to God. So again, so it's not like Lord comes in every age, right? Either directly or indirectly. So in Kali Yuga he comes indirectly, Channa Avatar, but his mission is need to be re-established time and again. Yeah, so because the nature of Kali Yuga is like that, everything slowly degrades. Not only Kali Yuga, the material world itself. Everything degrades and Lord keeps coming and keeps sending his confidential devotees to this world again and again. Every century also there will be few devotees who will be visiting the world. So it's a continuous mission for the Lord. There will always be people of lower consciousness in this material world. So it so it's not like a perfect world would begin right after. That's not ever promised. So Lord came, he cleansed, reduced the burden of earth, gave wonderful pastimes that would act as guideline. And what has to happen will happen, like Kali Yuga began, and whoever follows will get benefit from it.
Okay, so basically the result of the war
Hmm.
and Krishna's establishing dharma is basically to give us the knowledge of Gita and Bhagavatam so that future generations can follow that and lead a dharmic life. Right? They will go back to Godhead, and who doesn't follow that guidelines will get stuck in this cycle of birth.
Assume there is no Bhagavatam, there is no pastimes of Lord, there is no war, nothing, right? Then literally people born in the middle world, they have no guidance at all, right? So they'll follow their desires, material desires, to enjoy in this material world. That's what, for example, before we became devotees, our desires were all different, right? We want to get bigger job, bigger colleges, or better things in the material world. That's the purview of thinking that conditioned soul will have. But because we have the experience, we have the knowledge of Bhagavatam, we have the knowledge of scriptures, now our perception of the world changed, and our goals and everything has changed accordingly. So that happened because of Lord has given whatever he has given. So that is helping us, right?
Okay, thank you.
Please read the translation.
Maharaj, should I read, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
Maharaj Yudhishthira, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhishma Deva and Lord Shri Krishna, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas and was followed by his young brothers.
So he was perfectly followed by younger brothers, and he also ruled the country with perfect knowledge, because all his doubts were eradicated by the instructions of Vishnu Deva and Lord Krishna.
Yudhishthira was not a typically uh, unenlightened political leader of modern democracy. Maharaj Yudhishthira was instructed by Bhishma Deva and the infallible Lord also, and therefore he had full knowledge of everything in perfection.
He's not like two current days leaders who have no knowledge on what is the goal of life, or how should we rule the country. He was perfectly enlightened by Vishnu Deva and Lord himself. Please read that also.
The conception of one world state can only be fulfilled if we can follow the infallible authority. An imperfect human being cannot create an ideology acceptable to everyone. Only the perfect and the infallible can create a program which is applicable at every place and can be followed by all in the world. It is the person who rules and not the impersonal government. If the person is perfect, the government is perfect. If the person is a fool, the government is a fool's paradise.
So what Prabhupada is saying is, the world want peace across various countries, right? So that's why we have so many for example, World Health Organization, just for taking care of health across the world, or all their UNICEF. So many conferences were held to bring people together to work on a single mission, to make the entire world under one common camaraderie principles, right? But what Prabhupada is saying is, whatever man creates to achieve such universal brotherhood or camaraderie across countries, all those ideologies, they would just fail. They will never work until the leader of such organization follows the instructions of Lord. Right? So only when we follow the instructions of the Lord and we do such things under the guidance of the Lord, the scriptures, then such things are possible. Otherwise, it's not possible. That's why we have all these organizations that want that want to establish peace in the world. But we see today there is war. Nobody is able to do anything. Right? The war between Ukraine and Russia. When things happen, they just happen. No, there is no attempts of peacemaking can stop such things. So it's very difficult unless, of course, wars would always happen, but these wars are meaningless. Just people want resources better for themselves. That's all. Ukraine wants their own way of doing things, and Russia wants their own way of doing things. Both are, you cannot be on either side. Yeah. So all such programs, unless one gets to the level of spiritual understanding, all such material efforts to calm down, bring peace in the world, all those things will just fail. Right? So they're all simply waste of money. People spend, they take so much, they use a lot of tax money to organizing all these, institutes of universal importance. But as long as everybody is trying to protect their own interest and only considering their country's needs and goals and objectives, cannot be any unity. Right? Just like if everybody in a community is selfish, they're only thinking about themselves, how can the community come together? It doesn't happen at community level, it doesn't happen at country level, it doesn't happen at universal level. Right? So only when people can come together only and when they follow the instructions of law, right? And they abide by the higher principles of spirituality, overcoming the bodily boundaries, right? And selfish needs, then there can be universal camaraderie. Okay? So when Yudhishthira Maharaj was ruling the world, he was not just ruling India, he was ruling the entire world, meaning all these other, Africa and every country, every part of the world was ruled by Yudhishthira Maharaj. He was the entire world's leader, right? And everybody was happy in the entire world because nature was fully cooperating, because when the king is good, naturally the nature also supports such a king. So right now we see a lot of calamity, virus, this and that, because nature was not in mood of cooperation with us. If you keep on abusing somebody, what does they do? They just want to not cooperate with us. So there won't be rainfall in time, because everybody's attitude was one of exploitation. So there won't be any cooperation. But when the universe is, the people are following the codes of religion, they were treating everybody nicely, the cows and animals and entire nature in a very friendly way, camaraderie way. Everybody would reciprocate to their best. And there will be, Earth has enough capacity to feed 10 times the current population. But why is there starvation in the world today? It's because of the rulers. Rulers of the country were not God conscious. Naturally, the nature is not supporting it. And so nature is just withholding the supplies. We'll read in Pruthumara's story in 4th Canto how nature can decide to withhold and stop supplying to the world, like grains, water, whatever. Today, even water is purchased in India in several cities. It's because of lack of natural supply of water in the ground, right? So all these problems are because people are more and more becoming atheistic. But when there is a ruler like Yudhishthira Maharaj, nature was in perfect harmony with the people of this world. We'll read in the next few verses how. So this whole thing began as a question by the sages, Saunaka Rishi, on how did Yudhishthira Maharaj rule the world. So now we'll see how Yudhishthira Maharaj ruled the world. Right? Nature was completely supporting his rulership. Right? Kamam vavasa parjanya sarvakama dugamahi
सर्वकामा दुगामहि
sishi sma vrajan gava
शिष्टुः स्मृजान्यावः
yasodha swatir muda.
वसोधा स्वधीर्मुदा
During the reign of Maharaja Yudhishthira, the clouds showered all the water that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of man in profusion. Due to its fatty milk bag and cheerful attitude, the cow used to moisten the grazing ground with milk.
So during Yudhishthira Maharaj, rain would happen exactly at the time it is needed. People need rain at a particular time so that the crops can grow. It would come exactly to the amount needed and exactly at the period needed. Earth produced all necessities in profusion. Earth was giving full supplies, natural supplies. So there were, if naturally 10 kilos of something used to supply, the fruit tree would give like 10 times of the actual supply because it was so happy. The cows were also extremely happy, right? So they were so cheerful when they are walking. The milk is dripping from their udders and it is moistening the grazing ground. Right? So the milk was spread all over the lands, grazing lands. Right? So that shows how much milk the cows were happy to give. And today, cows don't give a lot of milk because they're always threatened that they were always mistreated. They're treated like just like resources, and they were misused and abused, and so they don't give good milk. First of all, even if whatever milk they give, that's in less quantity. But during Maharaj Yudhishthira, he was treating humans, not just humans, even animals as his citizens. Think about it for a second, right? If the country's ruler treats all the living entities in the country as their president or the prime minister, whatever, so he would not let an animal that cannot defend itself to be killed. Correct? Why would he do that? Because he treats every animal as his own child, the ruler of the country. So that is the reason when Kali entered and tried to kill cow, Maharaj Parikshit immediately stopped him and tried to kill him, that person, whoever the Kali, and whoever tried to kill the cow, immediately tried to stop him. Because as a ruler of the country, he wanted to stop all killing of animals. Right? He never would encourage killing of especially cows, right? Cows and bulls. So you see how if lot depends on how good is the king or the ruler of the country. Actually, based on how good the person is, how God conscious is, our happiness depends. If you get a completely atheistic ruler, there is so much suffering that the people of the world go through. That's what is happening in today's world, because the king is very anti-God, right? Anti-God conscious. So naturally, there are supply chain constraints or inflation or COVID crisis or China war or Ukraine war. Today, actually, the world is in a very, very dire state, right? Everything has raised in price. and there is a war going on, and the gas prices have gone up like anything. All these are symptoms of, one is our own collective ugra karma. Second is our rulers are also, they're all not trying to come together. They're fighting with each other. War started 4 months back. There is no end, and nobody knows when it will end. And because Spain was the powerhouse of so many things, it is a major supplier of gas for entire Europe, and also major supplier of wheat and major supplier of fertilizers. So the wheat prices have gone up like crazy, and now in the next crop season, the fertilizers will be limited. So fertilizers will be limited in the next few months, because Russia was the major supplier of fertilizers for the entire world, and naturally when fertilizers are becoming costly, the prices of all the all the grains would rise, and there's going to be a lot of countries that would have food shortages, because a lot of countries don't produce, like even a lot of countries are not self-sufficient in food. So there's going to be more problems in the next 6 months to 1 year. First, the war has to end, and then the effects of war has to end. Just like COVID has started, COVID has ended, but the effects of COVID are still there. Supply chain constraints, and China lockdown. Right now, the world is in a very bad shape. It's all because of our own bad karma, collectively, our own lack of God consciousness, and also the rulers. They were all looking at their own needs. Nobody wants to work with others. Everybody is selfish. It's just like countries are like families only. Families cooperate together, things can be nice, right? So similarly, when countries cooperate together, things will be better. Right? So everybody, Russia is thinking, the country ruler, whoever he is, right, Vladimir Putin, he's thinking this Donbass or whatever the region that belongs to Russia. But who is he, right? He's not going to be there 30 years after. He's going to be dead and gone. And this artificial rulership, while we are in this world temporarily, they are not going to help at all. They're only creating much havoc. Already material world means a lot of suffering. And these people, because of their, uncontrolled mind, they're increasing the suffering of people in the material world further and further. So the knowledge of Gita and Bhagavatam is far more relevant in today's world. That's the reason one of the desire of Prabhupada is this knowledge reach more and more people. The reason is then they start living at the platform of the soul. They don't get bogged down by the material needs and material anarthas, right? Lust, greed, anger, envy. Otherwise, everybody is pulled down by those anarthas. So that's the reason for us to go out and Sankirtan. That's the reason for doing so many festivals by Maharaj here at Haridas Maharaj. So that people in the world get some hope. Hey, there are people who care. There are people who love selflessly. There are people who serve selflessly. The world has lost such hope because of what is going on in the world. So these are not just festivals, they're also the acts of hope giving to the world. Right? It's not just camaraderie and friendship with the people around the world. It also, is an opportunity for them to learn about the universal principles of existence, like who you are, who is God, what's the relation, how the world operates. All these core principles, unless they learn from Bhagavad Gita, where is the opportunity for them? Unless somebody came to you and explained about these things, you are not going to be here. So that is the purpose with which the organization ISKCON operates, to share this knowledge with more and more people, so that more and more people can come out of the clutches of the three modes of material nature, and they can basically lead a meaningful and purposeful life. Yeah. See, and then the nature would be ready to cooperate, right? If we all become God conscious, and the ruler of the country is also God conscious, life will be very peaceful in this world, and ultimately the goal of life is achieved, because the opportunity to go back to Godhead comes. Yeah, please read, Prabhu.
The basic principle of economic development is centered on land and cows. The necessities of human society are food grains, fruits, milk, minerals, clothing, wood, etc. One requires all these items to fulfill the material needs of the body. Certainly, one does not require flesh and fish or iron tools and machinery. During the regime of Maharaja Yudhishthira, all over the world there were regulated rainfalls. Rainfalls are not in the control of the human being. The heavenly king Indradeva is the controller of rains, and he is the servant of the Lord. When the Lord is obeyed by the king and the people under the king's administration, there are regulated rains from the horizon, and these rains are the causes of all varieties of production on the land.
So by the cooperation between the people of the earth and the people of higher planets, there is going to be sufficient rain in this world. So people in the past, they were always obedient to the will of the Lord, and they're performing sacrifices so that there is sufficient rainfall. Okay? So that will happen only when we are obedient to the teachings of Lord. Right? So this is the second mission of Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada established ISKCON primarily to teach the principles of pure devotion service, and also to expand this knowledge to the world and make this world a peaceful place. So that is Varnashrama, Daivi Varnashrama. So that's where a lot of devotees are endeavoring to establish these Varnashrama systems, where devotees come together, work together on the land, produce their necessities, and set a good example for people of the world on simple living and high thinking. Right? They do some limited amount of work every day. They produce the necessities of life, and rest of the time they'll all be spending together, chanting the holy names, and performing Shravanam, Kirtanam, right? So all these activities. When devotees come together and live together in a community, they'll be very happy, because the association of devotees is what is the most satisfying to the heart, actually. Right? And so all of us also as devotees, we all come together to study and hear. That's all good. But we all should also come together and spend time together, hear each other, understand each other, and also perform bhakti together, hear together, and that is how relationships build. And because devotees are all centered around Krishna, the true relationships develop, because they're all centered around God. Right? So without Krishna, all this coming together will not be sustainable. But with Krishna, us devotees coming together will be sustainable, because that is the right principle. So when we come together, the envy in the heart will go away, right? And we all become closer together towards Krishna. And that is the desire of Krishna. Krishna will be so happy when devotees cooperate and serve together. Yeah, please read.
What is the need of an artificial, luxurious life of cinema, cars, radio, flesh, and hotels. Has this civilization produced anything but quarreling individually and nationally? Has this civilization enhanced the cause of equality and fraternity by sending thousands of men into a hellish factory and the war fields at the whims of a particular man?
See, this is what is happening, right? So many people were sent to the parts of Ukraine. What will they gain, right? So people were, and also factories. So all these, people, all these efforts are making some people rich, some people powerful, with control on bigger and bigger lands. But it hasn't really helped us on the real mission of God, which is to go back to Godhead. I'm sorry.
Therefore, in contrast with the modern, advanced, civilized form of government, an autocracy like Maharaja Yudhishthira's is by far superior to a so-called democracy in which animals are killed and a man less than an animal is allowed to cast votes for another less than animal man.
Prabhupada puts it nicely here. In contrast to modern, advanced, civilized form of government, an autocracy like Maharaja Yudhishthira's is by far superior. Many people think autocracy is not good because king is the one ruler who can do whatever he wants, right? Yes, in today's world, yes, it's not good. Like in North Korea or in the past in Germany, we have seen Hitler and such rulers who were like completely sinful, right? It doesn't help the cause of God's mission. But autocracy is really great if the king is like Yudhishthira Maharaj, right? Where he was completely following the instructions of Bhishmadev and Kṛṣṇa himself. So such autocracy is great because in such autocracy, nature supports and people are very happy. They have their necessities fulfilled and there are no scarcity of anything. People are just happy. So it's really good to have such autocratic ruler who is perfect follower of religious principles. So in the democracy today, right, people cast votes based on who gives money at the end of the who gives more money before the actual election. That's what happens in India, at least. Here I don't know, but there might be some variation of it. So animals are killed. Animals cannot protect themselves. Human being is like, actually Prabhupada writes here. Please read, Prabhupada.
Yes, Prabhu. The human being is the elder brother of all other living beings. He is endowed with intelligence more powerful than animals for realizing the course of nature and the indications of the Almighty Father.
Because he has better intelligence, as he has better control of every other living entity, he should act like an elder brother who is responsible for the happy living of all the living beings, not just human beings, right? And also the ruler of the country should take care of animals also as his citizens. Then there is fraternity between humans and animals, and the whole world will be happy. But in today's world, government itself maintains slaughterhouses in many countries, and there is mass massacre of animals. They cannot express their feelings. We assume they're okay. It's okay to kill them. So it's very unfortunate situation. It should not be done that way. Nadya samudra giraya
Nadya samudra girya
savanaspati virudaha
Samanaspati viruddha
Palanti Oshadhaya Sarva
Palanti Oshadaya Sarva
Kamam Avrututashavai
Kamam
Tasya
Avrutashya
The rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, forests, creepers, and active drugs in every season paid their tax quota to the king in profusion.
So the king was ruler of all the natural facilities also, like rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, forests, creepers. So they were all producing vast amounts of whatever they produce. Right? Forests are giving all the medicinal herbs. Mountains are giving whatever they give, minerals or whatever. So they're all paying whatever they are due, meaning they're just giving natural supplies. That is how the king was, because of good king, nature was so cooperative. Yeah, please continue.
Since Maharaj Yudhishthir was under the protection of Ajit, the infallible Lord, as above mentioned, the properties of the Lord, namely the rivers, oceans, hills, forests, etc., were all pleased, and they used to supply their respective quota of taxes to the kings. The secret to success is to take refuge under the protection of the Supreme Lord. Without his sanction, nothing can be possible. To take economic development by our own endeavors on the strength of the tools and machinery is not at all. The sanction of the Supreme Lord must be there, otherwise, despite all instrumental arrangements, everything will be unsuccessful. The ultimate cause of success is the Daiva, the Supreme. The kings like Maharaj Yudhishthir knew exactly well that the king is the agent of the Supreme Lord to look after the welfare of the mass of people.
Kings themselves, they only saw themselves as the agents of Lord. So the ultimate cause of success is Daiva. Man cannot endeavor and achieve success on his own unless there is Daiva Krupa, right? The mercy of the Lord. Nobody can achieve anything great in this world. That's what is mentioned here. So one cannot, nature is supplying so profusely because Yudhishthira Maharaj was perfectly following as an agent of the Supreme Lord, as mentioned here in the last one. So let's skip this one a little fast here. Nadhayo Yadaya Klesha
Nadhayo yadadhaya kleshah
Daiva Bhutatmahetava
Daiva bhutatma
Mahetava
Ajata Satrava Bhava
ajata satrava bhava
Jantunam Rajnika Hichit.
Jantunam rajanikar
Karhichit.
Please read.
Because of the kings having no enemy, the living beings were not at any time disturbed by mental agonies, diseases, or excessive heat or cold.
So the king had no enemy. So the living beings were not at any time disturbed by mental agonies, diseases, or excessive heat or cold. So naturally, the nature was very, very supportive. So there is no mental anxieties, diseases, excessive heat, cold, which we see all over the world today. People are disturbed mentally. I heard in every 3 people there is one person with mental issues here in the United States of America. So that's a big problem. And king, the ruler of the country, is such a critical part. He's like father of the home, right? his being good makes a lot of difference in the happiness of the family, in the father. Right? So similarly, having a good king makes a lot of difference in the happiness of the people of the world. So these are all principles that one can learn on how to rule. If for example, the prime minister or the president of the country reads these verses, there is so much he can learn from these verses, right? These are perfect formulas to actually rule the country in a very, very nice way. But unfortunately, they will never have a chance to look at these books. But if suppose somebody looks at it, then that really benefits the country. That country. Yeah, please read.
Unless one is pious and recognized by the Lord, he cannot make others happy who are under his care. There is full cooperation between man and God and man and nature. And this conscious cooperation between man and God and man and nature, as exemplified by King Yudhishthira, can bring about happiness, peace, and prosperity in the world. The attitude of exploiting one another, the custom of the day, will only bring misery.
Yeah, self-explanatory. Usitva Hastinapure
Utsitva Hastinapure
Masan Katipayan Hari
San Payan Hari
Suhridam Cha Vishokaya
Suhridam cha
Sridam
Vishokaya
Samvishokaya
Swasuscha Priyakamyaya.
Vasuscha Priyakamamaya.
Sri Hari, Lord Sri Krishna, resided at Hastinapura for a few months to pacify his relatives and please his own sister Subhadra.
Yeah. So Lord Krishna stayed for a few months, after the war was over, first to help Uttara to protect her womb. He was about to leave, but then he waited. First Queen Kunti wanted him to stay for some time, stayed, and when he's about to leave, the incident of Uttara happened, and he stayed for some time. And then Yudhishthira Maharaj went into a state of hopelessness, and to pacify him, he stayed for some more time. And then also primarily to help appease his sister Subhadra, who lost her son. Right? The Lord stayed some more time. So after pacifying, after taking care of all of this, now Lord is about to leave for Dvārakā from Hastinapur.
Krishna was to start for Dvārakā, his own kingdom, after the battle of Kurukshetra and Yudhishthira's being enthroned. But to oblige the request of Maharaj Yudhishthira and to show special mercy to Bhishma Dev, Lord Krishna stopped at Hastinapura, the capital of the Pandavas. The Lord decided to stay especially to pacify the aggrieved king as well as to please Subhadra, sister of Lord Sri Krishna.
Yeah.
The Lord is always pleased to satisfy his devotees in any capacity. Only his devotees can play the parts of his relatives. The Lord is absolute.
So it's not only that the devotees try to always please the Lord and satisfy the Lord. Lord is also always pleased to satisfy his devotees in any capacity. Lord is also looking for opportunities to serve his devotees. So this is the greatness of Lord. Is the mercifulness of the Lord. He is very personal. He is very, very reciprocative. If we do one, actually he does more than one. He always does 10 times of what we do. So it's not just that devotion service is one way. Devotion is love for the Lord, and it is always both ways. So, yeah, next we will come to the next process. Amantriya chabhyānuñāta
Amantrya chabhyunujatah
Bhyanudyatah
parisvajyabhivadyatam
parisvajyabhya
Vadyatam
vidyatatam
aruroharatham kaischit
aruroratham kaishchit
Kaischit
parisvato bhavadita
parisvato
Parisvato
vivaditah.
Bhivadita
Is it?
Afterwards, when the Lord asked permission to depart and the king gave it, the Lord offered his respects to Maharaj Yudhishthir by bowing down at his feet, and the king embraced him. After this, the Lord, being embraced by others and receiving their obeisances, got into his chariot.
So afterwards, Lord asked permission to depart, and the king Yudhishthira Maharaj, he gave it. You see, even the Lord, even though he's supremely independent, he's the the head of the entire creation. All these Pandavas are just his devotees. One of the many devotees, millions of devotees. But he behaves so personal and so loving with his devotees. So Lord asked permission to depart, and the king gave it. So if the king doesn't give, he will stay back. So that's what it means. So the Lord offered his respects to Yudhishthira Maharaj by bowing down at his feet. Look at the Vedic culture. Because Yudhishthira Maharaj was elder to Lord, as a custom, he paid obeisances by touching the feet of Yudhishthira Maharaj, Lord himself. So that is the nature of Lord. So there is no superiority or anything like that. Completely spiritual in nature, the relationships. And Maharaj Yudhishthira, of course, he knows Lord is the Supreme Lord, but still he reciprocates in this way. He accepts, he knows that, definitely Lord is my Lord, but still he accepts and reciprocates with the Lord as necessary. And the king embraced him. After this, Lord being embraced by others, Arjuna and Bhima, they were of equal age as Lord. So they embraced each other. They're of similar age, so there is no falling at the feet. Instead, they embraced and received their obeisances, meaning from Nakula and Sahadeva, who were younger to Lord Kṛṣṇa. So they paid obeisances to the Lord, and so he actually lifted them up and embraced them. And then finally got into his chariot to go back to Dvārakā.
The Lord takes pleasure when some of his devotees accept him as less important in terms of lover. No one is greater than or equal to the Lord, but he takes pleasure in being treated as younger than his devotee. These are the transcendental pastimes of the Lord.
See, Lord is so superior to everybody, but he takes a lot of pleasure in being treated as younger to his devotees. Such a loving reciprocation, right? Like, imagine Lord with us, and he's embracing some of us or bowing down before some of them. Such enchanting pastimes Lord performs. He takes a lot of pleasure in doing so. Now, the next two sets of verses 9, 10, 11, 12 will end with this one actually. So these show how much the devotees love the Lord. Subhadra Draupadi Kunti
Subhadra Draupadi Kunti
Ratatanaya Tata
Virat Tanaya Tatha
Gandhari Dhritarashtrascha
Gandhari
Gandhari
Dhritarashtrascha
Dhritarashtrastra
Yutsu Gautamo Yamau
Juyutsuro Gautamo Yamo
Vikodarascha Dhaumyascha
Vrakodarascha Dharmascha
Yo Matsya Sutadaya
Shriyo Matsya
Sutadaya
Sutadhaya
Nasahire Vimuhyanto
Nasahire Vimuyanto
Viraham Sanaga Dhanavana.
Virham Sanga Dhanavana.
Please read.
At that time, Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, Uttara, Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, Yuyutsu, Kripacharya, Nakul, Sahadev, Bhimsen, uh, Dhamya, and Satyavati all nearly fainted because it was impossible for them to bear separation from Lord Krishna.
See, when Lord was there in the world, the devotees were in so much love with him. They always loved the Lord to be with them. They want the Lord to go around with them, be with them, and they were feeling so much love, expressing their. So when Lord is around them, they have the opportunity to serve the Lord in whatever way that pleases the Lord. Right? So all of them have so much love. When you have love, naturally, when the Lord departs, naturally you feel separation. Right? When there is no love, there is no separation, feeling of separation. Right? We don't miss the Lord sometimes because we don't have the love in the first place. But in the case of these devotees, Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, Uttara, Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, even Gandhari, Dhritarashtra were part of it. They all have natural affection for the Lord, and they all nearly fainted just by hearing that Lord is leaving now to Dvārakā. It's not too far; they can go and see him also there. But just by hearing those words that Lord is leaving tomorrow, they all fainted, and so much separation. They're crying. They're all great people. They all, like even Nakula, Sahadeva, Bhima, they're all great warriors. But everybody was morose and sick just by hearing the words that Lord is leaving tomorrow. It was impossible for them to bear separation from Lord. Means, see how loving is Lord. How much Lord has to reciprocate with them for them to feel so much love and separation. It's impossible to bear separation from Lord. You see? Similar thing happened when Lord Chaitanya left the world all of a sudden by merging into Tota Gopinath. The devotees were fainted. They all, rest of their life was just crying for Lord. That's all. That's called Vipralamba Bhava. Vipralamba means feeling the separation from the Lord. You can only feel separation when you have the love for the Lord. When there is no love, there is no separation. So in the Chaitanya Sikshastakam, we hear one verse, right? Yugaitam nimishena chakshusha pravrasaitam sunyaitam jagat sarvam govinda virahename. That verse means the entire world is vacuum without your presence, my Lord. My eyes are filled with tears, waiting to see you. Sunyaitam jagat sarvam govinda virhenam. So because the devotees have such love for the Lord, they always feel separation whenever Lord moves away from their association. Even great devotees today also, who have such affection for Lord, they feel such separation from Lord all the time. They want to go back to Lord's abode as soon as and be engaged in the service there. Right? So that is the desire of those devotees. So for that to happen, one needs to experience the love of the Lord. And for that to happen, we need to progress in spiritual life. We need to overcome all our anarthas. We need to chant. Please, great Vaishnavas, please, the devotees, serve them and receive the kripa of them, mercy of them, and then we advance in our spiritual life. And then we get to a state where we have natural love for the Lord. Right? So we need to all work on that, right? So that we can have that personal relationship with the Lord. Lord is reciprocated to every one of us, if only we open up to Him fully. Right? So He is ready to connect with everyone, and he can act in personal relationship with each of us. Only that we need to get to a state where we can experience that. It's the effort from our side that is, and the mercy of the devotees that will bring us to that state. So let's read this one last line.
The conditioned soul under the spell of illusory energy forgets the Lord, otherwise he cannot. The feeling of such separation cannot be described, but it can simply be imagined by devotees only. After his separation from Vrindavan and the innocent ruler cowherd boys, girls, ladies, and others, they all felt shock throughout their lives, and the separation of Radharani, the most beloved cowherd girl, is beyond expression.
Similar thing happened in Vrindavana. The Gopas and Gopis and all the Brajavasis of Vrindavana, they never imagined separation from their beloved Lord Krishna. Right? They never imagined in their own life. Their life is meant to serve Lord. That is how they lived all their life, at least from the time he was born to the time he left Vrindavan. And rest of their life, they spent just talking about Krishna, remembering Krishna, and just hearing about pastimes of Krishna, speaking about Krishna. In this way, the rest of life was just spent remembering Krishna. So that is how the gopis of Vrindavana spent. So similarly, the devotees here, Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, they were also great devotees. They were in various other rasas. So they all fainted. So Lord is so lovable. That is the point here. You need to know. Lord is very, very lovable. He acts very personally. Right now we may not be experiencing such things, but when we get to a pure state of consciousness, we can all experience it. That is the future of a devotee. So that's the vision we should have. That's the goal of every devotee. Okay, so we'll continue from 11th verse in the next class.
Prabhuji, who is Dhaumya in this verse? It's written after Bhimsen. Who is Dhaumya?
Dhaumya.
He used to go with Pandavas when Pandavas were there in the forest for 12 years. Dhaumya Rishi used to guide them to places to places. This is what I heard from some of the Bhagavatam lectures.
Okay.
Prabhuji, thank you.
And who is Satyavati Prabhu?
Satyavati, I know, is the wife of Vyasadeva.
Not wife.
That's her mother.
Mother.
Yes, but she would have passed away by now, right? Because
No, she lived longer.
is this the same Satyavati?
That is the only Satyavati I know. I mean, I haven't heard of any other Satyavati so far in Bhagavatam.
I think so, Prabhu,
I can
because
double
there is
check.
no mention of her passing by.
Yeah, I can double check on that.
Okay.
But these verses are all so beautiful. Bhagavatam is like that. It really shows the nature of the Lord, nature of the devotees. What is bhakti? There is no better literature that gives such beautiful understanding. That's why Bhagavatam is like nectar. You touch anywhere, it's just nectar drops. So all these, especially Canto 1, Prabhupada put his best purports. That's why I'm reading purports. Every purport is nectarian. So amazing Canto, first Canto and second Canto also Prabhupada put a lot of effort. And the content of the cantos also, you see, like first chapter covered so many important aspects, defined Bhakti, Bhagavan. And the second chapter defined devotion service and the progression in devotion service. Third, fourth chapters, they further questions the history of Bhagavatam and the history of Narada Muni, history of Sukadeva Goswami, history of Vyasadeva, and the Vyasadev's doubts, Narada Muni's resolution of the doubts, and then further is Lord's the history, the incidents leading up to Parikshit Maharaj. So that is what we are discussing right now. Lord's relationship with all the great devotees is revealed now. That's what we are reading at this point. Yudhishthira Maharaj, Bhishma Dev, Kunti's prayers. So it's all amazing chapters, all these chapters. So much to learn. When you get chance, you should read at your home. Verse, translation, and purport. So we'll end here. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Krishna Prabhuji,
Hare
thank you so
Krishna
much.
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.